Somewhere in Pennsylvania right now, workers are preparing to restart a nuclear power plant the world once believed it would never trust again. 3 Mile Island. For nearly half a century, that name carried a psychological weight far larger than the actual event itself. In 1979, one of its reactors partially melted down. The containment held. No one died from radiation exposure. But after that moment, something changed in the public imagination. Nuclear power stopped feeling like the future and started feeling like a warning. Entire reactor projects were canceled. Construction pipelines collapsed. Countries that once imagined nuclear energy powering the next century quietly began turning away from it. And for a while, it looked like nuclear power would slowly fade into the background of modern life. An aging technology, surviving mostly on infrastructure built by previous generations. Then, the economy changed underneath the grid. At first, the pressure appeared quietly. Inside data centers, industrial corridors, and electrical forecasts, most people never saw. Not because the world ran out of oil or natural gas. The problem was more subtle than that. Artificial intelligence, massive data centers, electric vehicles, advanced manufacturing, entire industries quietly shifting toward electricity at the same time. And unlike software, physical infrastructure does not scale overnight. Power plants take years to build. Transmission systems take years to approve. Entire electrical grids evolve far more slowly than the digital economy now running on top of them. But demand does not wait. Which is why governments, utilities, and technology companies around the world are suddenly reconsidering something many societies believed they had already moved beyond: nuclear power. Not because it became perfect, because reliable electricity may be becoming one of the most strategically valuable resources on Earth. For years, much of the Western world spoke about nuclear energy as though it belonged to another era. Something eventually destined to disappear as renewables expanded and fossil fuels declined. But while much of the public conversation moved on, something strange happened quietly in the background. Nuclear energy never actually disappeared. Outside the West, countries continued building reactors steadily and at enormous scale, treating nuclear less as ideology and more as infrastructure tied directly to industrial growth, geopolitical leverage, and long-term energy security. Today, nuclear power still generates roughly a fifth of all electricity in the United States. Across Europe, the number remains significant. In France, reactors generate close to 2/3 of the country's electricity supply, and China is building reactors at a pace most Western nations abandoned decades ago, which creates a contradiction at the center of this entire story. Nuclear energy remains one of the most controversial technologies on Earth, but it is also one of the largest sources of low-carbon electricity humanity has ever built. And unlike solar or wind, nuclear plants do not stop producing power because clouds move in or weather conditions suddenly shift. Once operating, reactors can run continuously for months at a time. The scale of that energy is difficult to visualize. A single uranium fuel pellet, small enough to fit in the palm of your hand, can contain roughly as much usable energy as tons of coal. That stability matters more than most people realize, because electricity is different from almost every other resource advanced economies depend on. Oil can sit in tanks. Natural gas can be stored underground. But electricity is strange. Most of the time, it has to be generated almost exactly when people need it. And behind the simplicity of flipping on a light switch is an invisible balancing act happening every second across the grid. Supply and demand constantly trying to remain synchronized across entire countries. Most people never think about the electrical grid until something breaks. A blackout during a heat wave, a spike in utility bills, air conditioning shutting off in the middle of summer. But underneath daily life, the infrastructure supporting modern society is being pushed harder now than it was originally designed for. And the deeper governments looked into the future, the more they started realizing something uncomfortable. Replacing reliable electricity infrastructure may be far harder than criticizing it. Most people assume nuclear construction collapsed because societies became afraid of catastrophic accidents. That explanation feels emotionally true, but it leaves out something equally important: money. In 2009, Georgia approved construction of Vogtle Units 3 and 4, the first major new American nuclear reactors in decades. At the time, the project sounded like the future finally returning: reliable electricity, lower carbon emissions, long-term energy security. But what followed became one of the most painful infrastructure disasters in modern American energy history. Construction delays piled up. Sections already completed had to be rebuilt. Inspections uncovered problems that triggered redesigns and even more delays. The company responsible for the reactor design eventually went bankrupt during construction. And after that, something inside the industry changed. Utilities became cautious. Investors became nervous. Because nuclear power still worked once reactors were operating, but building new ones suddenly started looking financially dangerous. The original projected cost was around $14 billion. The final cost climbed beyond $35 billion, years behind schedule. And much of that burden eventually flowed downward onto ordinary households paying electricity bills. At almost the same moment, another major nuclear expansion project in South Carolina collapsed entirely after billions had already been spent. No reactors, no electricity, just debt. For almost a decade, much of the industry froze in place. The timing could not have been worse, because while nuclear construction slowed, the world was becoming more electrically dependent than any society in human history. Not gradually, exponentially. And unlike apps, software, or digital platforms, physical infrastructure cannot scale at internet speed. The future arrived faster than the grid beneath it evolved. For many people, nuclear energy and nuclear weapons exist together in the same mental category. The words sound similar, the fuel sounds similar, and decades of Cold War fear blurred the distinction even further. But a nuclear reactor is not a nuclear bomb. Commercial reactors typically use uranium enriched to around 3 to 5%. Weapons-grade uranium is usually enriched to roughly 90%. That difference changes everything. A nuclear weapon is designed to release enormous amounts of energy almost instantly through an uncontrolled chain reaction. A nuclear reactor is designed to do the opposite: release energy slowly and continuously over long periods of time so heat can generate steam, turbines can spin, and electricity can flow across entire cities. That does not mean nuclear energy carries no risk. It absolutely does, but much of the public conversation surrounding nuclear power has historically blended civilian energy systems and nuclear weapons together in ways that often confuse technical reality with cultural memory. And even after separating the two, one problem still remains unresolved: the waste. When nuclear fuel inside a reactor is used over time, it becomes intensely radioactive. The used fuel is first removed and stored underwater inside deep cooling pools, where the water absorbs both heat and radiation. Later, much of it is transferred into massive steel and concrete dry casks designed to safely contain it for decades. The danger decreases slowly over time as radioactive materials naturally decay. Some materials lose most of their radioactivity relatively quickly. Others remain hazardous for thousands of years. And that is where the political problem begins. Because the electricity produced by a reactor may power a city for decades, but some of the waste created during that process may outlast the city itself. For decades, the United States planned to build a permanent underground repository inside Yucca Mountain, Nevada. Billions of dollars were spent studying the site, but after years of political conflict, the project stalled indefinitely. Importantly, commercial nuclear waste was never permanently buried there, which means Much of America's spent nuclear fuel still remains stored at reactor sites around the country today, quietly sitting behind reinforced concrete and steel long after the electricity it produced has already been consumed and forgotten. Other countries approached the problem differently. France developed systems that reprocess portions of spent fuel to recover usable material. Finland is nearing completion of one of the world's first deep geological disposal facilities, designed specifically to isolate nuclear waste far underground for extremely long timescales. And newer reactor designs are attempting to use fuel more efficiently while reducing long-lived waste generation. But no breakthrough has erased the problem completely, which means nuclear energy still asks societies to make an unusual bargain: reliable electricity today, in exchange for responsibilities extending far beyond the lifetime of the people benefiting from it. For decades, many countries decided that bargain was no longer worth making. Then the grid started changing faster than expected. The modern economy was already consuming extraordinary amounts of electricity before artificial intelligence entered the picture. Then, AI accelerated everything. Every generated image, every recommendation algorithm, every automated search, every cloud system, every large language model responding simultaneously to millions of users around the world. All of it depends on electricity flowing continuously through physical infrastructure most people rarely think about. And the scale now being discussed inside the energy industry is staggering. Large AI-focused data centers can consume as much electricity as entire cities while operating continuously every hour of every day. And unlike many traditional industries, these systems cannot simply pause when weather conditions shift or power demand spikes elsewhere on the grid. The servers still need electricity, the cooling systems still need electricity, the networks still need electricity, which suddenly made stable power generation look strategically valuable in a completely different way. And that is what makes the situation around 3 Mile Island feel almost surreal. For decades, the site symbolized the collapse of public confidence in nuclear power across America. Now it is being reconsidered because one of the largest technological revolutions in modern history needs more electricity than existing infrastructure can easily provide. And nuclear is not the only path being explored. Utilities are extending the lifespan of existing reactors. Governments are reconsidering retired plants. Advanced reactor technologies, including molten salt reactors, sodium-cooled systems, microreactors, and small modular reactors, are all being developed simultaneously. But even supporters of these technologies acknowledge the same uncomfortable reality. Most of them will take years to scale meaningfully. And the pressure on the grid is happening now, not decades from now. Now. Because advanced economies became electrically dependent faster than the infrastructure beneath them evolved. Nuclear energy was supposed to belong to the past. Instead, it is slowly becoming part of the future again. Not because the fears disappeared, not because the risks vanished, and not because society suddenly solved every problem surrounding the technology, but because the digital world still depends entirely on physical infrastructure, and physical infrastructure moves slowly. Power plants take years to build. Transmission systems take years to expand. Entire electrical grids evolve far more slowly than the economies now running on top of them. For decades, advanced societies assumed electricity would simply always be there, stable, invisible, unlimited somewhere in the background of daily life. Now governments and industries around the world are being forced to confront something they have not had to think seriously about in generations. What happens if building enough reliable power becomes one of the hardest engineering challenges of the modern age? And somewhere in Pennsylvania, inside a facility whose name once symbolized the collapse of public trust in nuclear power, workers are preparing systems that may soon operate again. Not because the debates ended, but because after decades spent believing nuclear energy belonged to a previous era, the modern world is discovering something uncomfortable. Keeping the lights on at the scale civilization now demands maybe far harder than anyone expected. The next episode goes somewhere even more unexpected: the hidden material quietly powering almost everything you own, wear, eat, and touch. And once you see it, you will never walk through a grocery store the same way again. This is Crude Reality.